Welcome. In this video, I think I've got something exciting to show you. We're going to learn how to create a new Ubuntu Linux virtual machine and connect to that virtual machine from your Windows 10 desktop. So my goal at the end of this lesson is to have a Linux virtual machine that is all set up and ready to roll so that in future lessons we can start installing the .NET Core SDK and runtimes so that we can write C# code on our Linux virtual machine. So to start off, let's go to our Windows search bar and search for Hyper-V, and you'll see that this Hyper-V manager shows up here in my search bar. So go ahead and open that, and you'll see in the Hyper-V manager you have this left pane which has my desktop listed, and in the center we have all of our virtual machines that are configured or already created. What I want to do is I want to go over to the actions, and I'm going to choose to create a new virtual machine with this quick create option. And you can see I get this window that allows me to select an operating system. So Windows already shows me Ubuntu 18.04. And that's what I'm going to use to create my virtual machine. You could also choose local installation source and choose to install from an ISO image or a virtual hard disk file. But Windows has this nice shortcut to Ubuntu 18.04. I'm going to go to this more options because I want to give that a name. I'm going to name this Linux C# dev machine. And for network, I'm going to use the default switch, and I'll click create. And if you have never installed a specific virtual machine image before, it may take some time. Windows may go out and download that for you when you use that shortcut option. I happen to have installed this before, so it may go quicker on my machine than it does yours. So I'm just going to pause the recording right here until this setup completes. So my virtual machine creation finished successfully, and so you see I have this window with this green check mark. I could choose to connect right here, but I'm going to close this window and go to my virtual machines list within Hyper-V Manager. I'm going to select my Linux C# dev machine, which is what I just created. And I'm going to start this machine by choosing the start option. And we can see that it starts by creating an initial checkpoint. And that succeeded. So now I want to right click and go to connect. And the first thing it's going to require us to do is we're going to have to go through the initial setup of Ubuntu once it boots up here. So we get this system configuration window. I'm just going to click continue through each of these. Continue on my time zone selection. And now it's asking my details. So I'm Matt. And I'm going to call this Linux Dev VM as my machine name. And I'm going to use Matt as my username. And I'm going to choose a password and click continue. And it may take a little while for the configuration to complete. And so my configuration's completed, and now it's prompting me to connect to my virtual machine, and it wants me to choose my resolution. I'm going to set mine at 1920 by 1080. You could choose to use something different. And I hit connect. And I'm going to go ahead and maximize this window with the virtual machine in it. So it's now asking me to log in. I'm going to put in my username, which is Matt, and my password. And I'm now connected to my desktop. So I will just hit next through this welcome dialog just to get it out of the way. And now we have a fresh install of Ubuntu Linux running as a virtual machine on top of our Windows 10 operating system. So what I want to do now is I'm going to bring this, restore it down so that I can get back to my Hyper-V manager. Actually, I will just minimize this. And so I can see here my Linux C# dev machine is running, CPU usage is 0. I see the assigned memory, the uptime. And what I want to do now is I like to create a checkpoint so that I have a snapshot of this machine that has the OS all set up if I want to revert back to a clean operating system at some point in the future. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose checkpoint, and that succeeded, and I have this new checkpoint in my checkpoint tree, and I want to rename that, and I'm going to call this clean OS checkpoint. So I could revert back to that checkpoint at any time in the future if I want to go back to my base level OS with nothing else installed. One thing you might want to do before you move on is you might want to go up to your virtual machine and just choose to turn that off or shut it down. And so that says that it succeeded. All right, awesome. We now have an Ubuntu Linux virtual machine set up that we can connect to from Windows 10 through our Hyper-V manager. In the next video, I want to show you how we can start installing the .NET Core runtime and SDK so that we can begin writing C# code on Linux.